So eminent domain, when it comes to jobs, roads, the public good, I think it's a wonderful thing. I'll be honest with you. And remember, you're not taking property. You know, the way you asked the question, the way other people, you're paying a fortune for that property.
The Donald's rivals pouncing on that. Marco Rubio and Rand Paul saying he couldn't be more wrong about eminent domain. I'm sorry, we had some audio problems with Gary B, so we'll have to soldier on for the rest of the show without him. Susie, what do you think about this? Who's right?
You know, Donald Trump is the gift who just keeps on giving to the media. I mean, he has every hot button issue. He just keeps on pushing those buttons. I mean, what wigs people out more than the thought that the government could come and take away your home? I mean, I don't know what's left for us to debate from Donald Trump's mouth. Maybe he's going to have us talking about whether dogs or cats are better. He's got to choose.
We know the answer to that.
We do. It's dogs. Yes. But, you know, I tremble as I say this, but I do think that he has a point about eminent domain, which has got a very bad rap. But without eminent domain, we wouldn't have places like the Barclays Center here in New York or the AT&T Stadium in Texas. And there are places where eminent domain should have occurred, like in Riviera Beach in Florida, and the neighbors beat it back. And I think there are times where neighborhoods and areas are so blighted that it takes a concerted effort, and eminent domain is that. Now, the thing about eminent domain is it has to be handled with extreme care because it is a terrifying thing for the government to be able to take property, and that's usually what happens. And Riviera Beach is a perfect example of the government trying to do it and it being pushed back by neighbors. So wonderful is not a word I use to describe it, but useful is a word I would use to describe it.
Okay, Chuck, what word would you use to describe it? Is this good for the economy?
If I would tell all politicians, walk away very slowly, but keep your eye on it, because you don't want to talk about this with voters. Now, the Supreme Court has ruled on this. The problem is they ruled on it very broadly. So what that did is it kicked it down to the states, and you had states that actually put this on the ballot. Well, guess what it did in every one of those states? It failed. It failed because people, when you ask them about eminent domain, this is not a popular thing. I run campaigns. I would never. Have you ever seen a TV commercial run by a politician where anybody even mentions eminent domain? There's a reason why that. Donald Trump will be the only one talking about it. It's a good thing to build interstate highways. It's a bad thing if you want to give it to private people like Donald Trump to tear down a building.
Is it such a bad thing, Jonas?
You know, it's not. And this is what's refreshing about Donald Trump. Donald Trump's competitors in this race have never had to build a birdhouse, leave alone a beautiful luxury condominium tower with brass and smoke glass. So they don't understand the reality of the world. They also don't understand how they are conflicting with their own things they are for, like the Keystone Pipeline. You would not build a Keystone Pipeline without eminent domain, which was a power granted to a foreign corporation. Forget all these like highways and all this stuff that the government does. It wouldn't happen without. So they can't be for one and against the other, only in a fantasy land of politicians. That said, look, you can put condos in Central Park by eminent domain. It's good for the economy. It's not good for everybody. So there's a limit to what, just because a developer wants to do it and it makes jobs doesn't mean it's great for everybody. So it's a touchy issue. Trump's mostly right on it. The other people don't make any sense on it because they're hypocrisy. But case by case, you got to deal with it for the benefit of everybody.
Okay, John, what sense do you make of this?
Well, it makes sense that I think Chuck is a brilliant man. It must be that good old East Texas upbringing, Chuck, that made you so smart. Look, it was what Chuck mentioned. It was Kelo versus New London, and the Supreme Court ruled 5-4. And they did it based on two things. It's the Fifth Amendment, and it's the taking of private land for public use, and how you define public use, and also the 14th Amendment of due process, which validates that. But the problem you have in New London, and remember now, eminent domain has been taken for racetrack parking lots, for car dealerships. That's a lot different than taking it for hospitals and interstate highways and railroads when railroads were still being built across this country to open up commerce. This was taken not for public use. They claim it was for public use because it was an economic benefit to the community. It was from a private person taking their home to a private person who said they were going to develop something economically. The funding fell through, so you took these people's home for absolutely no reason. That is the problem that you have when you take something from private and put it into a private. That's the misuse, to me, of the government. I think the Supreme Court was completely 100% wrong on this, and I think that's where you misuse this, and that's where politicians can get bought out to bring in some type of casino, car dealership, racetrack, whatever, and take someone's land. And most of those lands they take, by the way, are in the poorer neighborhoods, and it's used to get rid of those poor neighborhoods.
Okay, last word. Thanks, guys. Cashing in just over an hour from now. Eric, what do you guys have coming up?
Hi, Brenda. Russian smugglers busted for trying to sell nukes to Islamic extremists as Russia expands its fight in Syria. Can we trust the country of Putin to lead the fight in the Middle East? Plus, There goes the neighborhood. The government is giving early release to 6,000 federal prisoners. How this could affect you where you live. Cashing in. See you at 11:30.
You will. We'll be watching. But up here first. Fed up over fees? A new report on what banks are charging us that has someone here saying banks are robbing us.
These are outrageous. I mean, they just keep on going up and up and up.